Some plants soothe, some plants awaken, and some seem to carry the memory of the earth itself. There is something ancient about sage. Maybe it's the fragrance released when a leaf is crushed between your fingers. Maybe it's the way it thrives in harsh landscapes where other plants struggle. Or maybe it's because humans have turned to sage for food, medicine, ceremony, and wisdom for thousands of years. Tonight, we're exploring the history, folklore, pharmacology, and enduring magic of sage, an herb whose story stretches across deserts, monasteries, kitchens, and sacred spaces alike. Welcome to the Green Room Apothecary, a place where plants are more than remedies or medicine. They're remembered wisdom, part of our collective living history. Step into the garden with me to explore the history, folklore, and science behind the herbs that have shaped human healing for centuries. Whether you're here to learn something new, to unwind, or to gently drift off to sleep, I'm so happy that you're here. I'm your host, Nimue, and this is where ancient wisdom meets modern life. Before we walk any further together, I'd love to know where and when you're listening from in the comments. I love picturing this space connecting us through different spaces and times. And if you have a specific memory with sage you'd like to share, I'd love to hear about it. Now, take a deep, slow breath in. And as you let it out, let the weight of the day fall away from your shoulders. Unclench your jaw and let your hands rest softly wherever they are. Close your eyes and imagine you're walking with me. The sun has just dipped below the horizon, leaving the sky painted in bruised purples and soft velvet blues. The air is cool, carrying the sweet, heavy moisture of evening dew. The garden at night is a different world, quiet, slow, but deeply alive. The flowers have closed their petals, but the leaves are wide awake. We follow a winding stone path, our footsteps hushed. The moonlight catches on a low-growing bush, turning its leaves into pale, glowing silver in the dark. This is sage. Now, kneel down beside it with me. Look at the way the fuzzy, textured leaves catch the light, looking almost like frost in the lingering warmth of summer. Reach out and take a single leaf between your thumb and forefinger. Feel the velvet texture, the tiny raised veins beneath your skin. Pebble-grained like the skin of an old, wise reptile, yet soft and downy to the touch. It feels like a vintage quilt, beloved and worn. Now, gently crush the leaf. Bring your fingers to your nose and breathe in. That scent, it's grounding, isn't it? Earthy, ancient, and warm, laced with a sharp camphorous pine. A fragrance that instantly clears the mind and settles the heart. It smells like roaring hearths, autumn twilight, and of deep undisturbed rest. It smells like memory. It smells like clarity. Take a deep breath in and a deep breath out. And as you breathe it in, feel a cool, sweeping energy clear away the fog in your mind. Breathe in the silver light and breathe out the tangled, lingering thoughts of the day. We've known this scent for thousands of years. We've trusted it to heal us, to protect us, and to help us remember who we are. Tonight, we'll sit with sage, Salvia officinalis, the plant of the wise. We'll explore how the ancient Romans considered this herb so sacred that they held elaborate barefoot rituals just to gather it. We'll uncover the beautiful, creeping folklore of how it was believed to grant immortality and ward off the darkest of energies. And we'll look at the modern science that proves what herbalists have always known: how simply smelling this plant can awaken our memory, sharpen our minds, and soothe our frayed nerves. So, settle in. Let the silver light of the garden wash over you tonight as we uncover the gentle secrets of sage. Known botanically as Salvia officinalis, it's a proud member of the Lamiaceae family, the mint family. But where its mint cousins are bright and calming, sage is grounded, ancient, and quietly powerful. To understand this plant, let's first uncover the secret hidden in its name. The word sage comes to us through Old French, meaning wise, but its botanical name, salvia, holds an even deeper magic. It's derived from the Latin word salvare, which means to save, to heal, or to feel well. For thousands of years, to hold sage was to hold salvation. Let me tell you a story of how our ancestors saw this plant. The Romans held sage in such high regard that gathering it was said to be a ritual unto itself. According to ancient accounts, the person harvesting sage would first cleanse themselves and put on clean clothing before approaching the plant. Some traditions describe offerings being made beforehand, and iron tools, so common in everyday farming, were sometimes avoided during the harvest. Sage was associated with Jupiter, king of the Roman gods, the deity of the sky, thunder, law, and divine authority. To gather sage was not merely to collect an herb. It was an act performed with intention and respect. I love imagining a Roman hillside in the early morning light, the air still cool from the night before, silver green sage growing among stones warmed by centuries of sun. A harvester pausing for a moment before cutting the plant, acknowledging that what they were taking held value far beyond flavor or medicine. They plucked it gently, leaf by leaf, making offerings of bread and wine to the soil in thanks. Whether every detail of these rituals was practiced exactly as described is difficult to know. History often becomes tangled with folklore over time. But I think this story reveals something important about humanity's relationship with sage. People didn't simply use this plant, they honored it, and maybe there's some wisdom in that. Not necessarily in recreating ancient rituals, but in remembering that the plants supporting our lives are worthy of gratitude, intention, and respect. As the centuries gently turned, sage's reputation grew. By the Middle Ages, a famous proverb drifted through the stone halls of the school of Salerno, Europe's most prominent medical school. In Latin, they asked, "Cur moriatur homo qui salvia crescit in horto?" Why should a man die whilst sage grows in his garden? It was the ultimate symbol of longevity, the herb of immortality. In the year 812 AD, the great emperor Charlemagne was so convinced of its protective powers that he issued a royal decree mandating that sage be grown in all imperial estates. Folk legends whispered that sage was a mirror to the home itself. Villagers believed that a sagebush would thrive and bloom brilliantly if the woman of the house was strong and ruling well. If a business was prospering, the sage in the garden would grow lush and fragrant. But if times grew hard, the leaves would gently wither in sympathy. In the quiet world of green witchcraft and folk magic, sage is approached with a deep, breathless reverence. Sage is used as a fierce protector. Its smoke was said to banish heavy, lingering energies, clearing a room like a fresh wind sweeping through an open window. But it was also a quiet companion for spell work. Slipping a single dried sage leaf beneath your pillow was said to bring dreams of your future, while keeping a leaf tucked in your wallet was a little spell to manifest abundance, ensuring your resources would never run dry. And to truly understand a plant's spirit, we look to the stars above it. According to the old master herbalist like Nicholas Culpeper, sage was ruled by the expansive, jovial planet of Jupiter, and closely tied to the zodiac sign of Sagittarius. Jupiter is the great preserver of the cosmos. It's a planet of growth, of wisdom, of longevity, and of deep philosophical truth. It embodies a warm, life-affirming energy, kind of like a jovial uncle who wraps you in a thick blanket and tells you stories of the old days. Maybe this is one reason the Romans treated sage with such reverence. Ancient accounts describe ritual preparations before harvesting the plant, and some traditions even linked sage directly to Jupiter himself. Gathering sage was not merely a practical task. It was an act approached with respect, gratitude, and intention. And this is exactly what sage does in the body. It preserves us. It warms our digestion, lifts our spirits, and expands our mental clarity, acting as a botanical shield against the decay of time. Now, close your eyes and picture the visual symbolism of Sagittarius, the sign of the centaur. Its glyph is so simple, but profoundly stirring. It's an arrow, drawn taut across a crossbar, aiming diagonally upward and to the right, pointing directly into the heavens. Look at the shape of that arrow. It represents a tool of supreme focus. It pierces through the darkness, bypassing the mundane to strike a higher wisdom. When you drink a warm cup of sage tea, the herb acts exactly like this arrow. Its volatile oils pierce through mental fog, piercing through exhaustion, aiming your mind toward clarity and truth. It cuts through the dampness of a lingering cold, flying straight and true to bring healing. When we lay out our tarot cards, searching for the face of sage in the deck, we find it most beautifully reflected in the Hermit. Picture the classic imagery of the Hermit card. An old, bearded man stands alone atop a jagged, snow-capped mountain. The background is a stark, quiet gray, evoking the deep chill of winter and the silence of profound isolation. He's wrapped tightly in a heavy protective cloak, and the color of that cloak, a soft ashen gray, the exact velvety silver gray of a sage leaf. In his left hand, the hermit holds a sturdy wooden staff, a symbol of structural strength, authority, and the long journey he survived. In his right hand, he holds up a lantern against the dark. Inside that lantern glows a brilliant, yellow, six-pointed star. This image evokes a feeling of deep peace, of introspection, of slowing down and seeking the quiet truth within. Sage is the hermit of the garden. Even in the bitter cold of winter, when the rest of the garden has died back, sage remains. Its silver-gray cloak protects it from the frost. It stands as an elder, weathered but alive. And, just as the hermit holds up a lantern to illuminate the dark, sage illuminates the mind. It brings the bright yellow light of memory and cognition to the aging brain. It holds the star of wisdom, offering a guiding light when our thoughts feel lost in the snow. There's a subtle nuance here, too. Sometimes, sage aligns with the Hierophant, the card of ancient structural traditions. The Hierophant wears rich robes and sits between two pillars, passing down the keys of lineage to his followers. Sage, with its centuries of documented use, royal decrees, and presence in the sacred texts of old physicians, is that passed down tradition. It is both the solitary inner light of the hermit and the trusted, shared medicine of the Hierophant. This wisdom of sage is spoken in different languages across the globe. In traditional Chinese medicine, variations of sage are used to invigorate the blood, to clear stagnation, and to move the qi, or vital life force, so that it flows like a clear, unobstructed river. In Ayurveda, the ancient medical system of India, sage is known for its drying, warming qualities. It pacifies kapha dosha, clearing out dampness, lethargy, and the heavy congestion of a winter cold, bringing light and air back to the chest. In the ancient Greek and Persian practices of Unani medicine, sage is classified as hot and dry in the second degree, a brilliant restorer of lost vitality and nervous exhaustion. As we trace these ancient threads of magic, astrology, and global folklore, we begin to see a pattern, a deeply credible, enduring truth about what this plant can do. Now, let's move from the magical into the molecular. Let's look a little closer at the soft silvery leaves we've been holding. When we place a velvety leaf of sage beneath the lens of a microscope, we aren't just looking at inert plant matter. We're peering into a tiny, bustling universe of healing, a miniature galaxy of life, entirely devoted to balance and repair. Beneath the magnifying lens, the rough, textured surface of the sage leaf reveals its hidden treasures. Tiny, glistening oil glands, plump and waiting. These microscopic vessels hold the fragrant, volatile oils that give sage its unmistakable, grounding scent. The scent of ancient kitchens, of autumn fires, and of grandmother's remedies. When you gently rub a fresh leaf between your thumb and forefinger, you are quite literally breaking open these tiny vaults. You're releasing the precious oils, freeing the tiny magic that has been sleeping inside, waiting for your touch. One of these wonderful, microscopic compounds is called rosmarinic acid. You might hear the word acid and think of something harsh or biting, but in the plant world, it's a deeply protective, soothing presence. It acts as a powerful antioxidant, sweeping through the tissues of the body like a gentle, devoted caretaker. It wanders through our systems, quietly repairing cellular damage, putting out the tiny fires of inflammation, and leaving peace in its wake. Then there's camphor, a compound carrying that cooling, clarifying breath that opens our lungs and sharpens our tired minds. And a delicate compound named thujon, which, in small, carefully measured, rhythmic dances, helps awaken the spirit. Together, these compounds create an alchemy that scientists are still marveling at. A complex, beautiful song, sung by the earth itself, orchestrated to bring us back into harmony as we take this magic into our bodies, usually steeped in a warm, honey-sweetened tea. How does it travel? Where does it go when it slips past our lips and into the dark, quiet space of our bodies? Sage has a very special, ancient affinity for the nervous system, a profound protective love for the mind. When we're scattered, when our thoughts are racing like dry leaves skittering in an autumn wind, sage gently grounds us. It slows the fraying edges of our overworked nerves, inviting a deep, restorative calm to wash over us. But, interestingly, it doesn't just lull us to sleep. It brings a crystal clear, quiet focus. It stands as a protective guardian of our memories, gently nurturing the delicate neural pathways in our brain where our most cherished stories are kept safe. And as it moves downward, tracing a warm path through our center, sage brings its warming, slightly bitter comfort to our digestion. If you've ever felt the heavy, uncomfortable knot of an upset stomach after a rich meal or a stressful day, sage acts like a warm, soothing hand resting over your belly. It encourages the natural flow of digestive juices, relaxing the smooth muscles of the gut. whispering to your body that the day is done and it's finally safe to rest and digest. Even our hearts and blood vessels feel the gentle, supportive touch of sage. By easing systemic inflammation and offering its robust antioxidant shield, it supports the gentle, steady rhythm of our cardiovascular system, keeping the rivers of our bodies flowing smoothly. Sometimes, modern science simply gives a new, complicated name to what the ancient healers already knew. In the crisp, white, sterile rooms of clinical laboratories, researchers have been making some truly reassuring discoveries about our fuzzy green friend. In careful studies focusing on cognitive health, researchers found something miraculous hidden in the leaves. Sage gently inhibits an enzyme in the brain that breaks down acetylcholine, a vital, precious messenger involved in learning, memory, and cognitive clarity. If this sounds familiar, it's because many modern pharmaceuticals designed to support those with Alzheimer's disease work in a very similar way. Yet, here's this humble garden plant, offering its protective embrace to our minds, just as it has for thousands of years. Studies have shown that even a single, gentle dose of sage extract can improve recall, elevate an anxious mood, and sharpen attention, clearing away the mental fog and letting the sunlight back in. Another beautiful, widely documented discovery centers around the changing cycles of a woman's life. For those navigating the shifting tides of menopause, sage has proven to be a steadfast, reliable companion. In clinical trials, women experiencing the sudden, overwhelming heat of hot flashes were given gentle daily preparations of sage. The results were a significant, measurable decrease in both the frequency and the intensity of the flushes. The plant works like a cool, silvery breeze on a sweltering night, regulating the body's internal thermostat and bringing the physical body back into a peaceful, comfortable balance. And with all potent magic, we need to approach sage with reverence, respect, and a deep understanding of our own unique bodies. Before we invite any new plant into our daily rhythms, we need to pause and listen what it asks of us. So please remember, I'm an herbalist and not a doctor. The stories, folklore, and science we share here are for your heart and your mind, not a replacement for medical guidance. Because sage contains the compound thujone, it asks us to practice the art of moderation. In the amounts we use for cooking a savory meal or enjoying a comforting cup of tea now and then, it's incredibly safe, supportive, and gentle. But if consumed in a very high concentrated dose or over long interrupted periods as an essential oil or extract, thujone can overstimulate and overwhelm the delicate nervous system we're trying to protect. Sage is also a plant that dries and moves, which means it's generally not recommended for those who are pregnant. And because it has a long, proven traditional history of drying up milk flow, it's best avoided by nursing mothers unless weaning is the specific goal. Always consult with your own trusted healthcare provider, especially if you take medications, to ensure sage is right for you. After that, let's step away from the microscope and walk back out into the cool evening air. Can you feel the soft, damp grass beneath your feet? The night air is perfectly still, fragrant, carrying the earthy, grounded scent of the soil, and the lingering perfume of the sage bushes, breathing in the dark alongside us. Let's return to the magic, to the poetry of the plant, resting deeply in the knowledge that we're held, and we are healed by the natural world around us. There's a quiet magic in gathering sage, a slow, deliberate conversation between you and the earth. To harvest the silver velvet plant is not a chore. It's a gentle ceremony, a moment to pause and breathe with the garden. The best time to meet your sage is in the soft light of mid-morning. You want to wait just long enough for the dawn dew to evaporate, but before the high sun can draw out the precious, fragrant oils. When you kneel beside the plant, take a moment to just be there. Brush the back of your hand against the leaves. Feel that silver green softness. like the ear of a sleepy rabbit. With a sharp, clean pair of shears, clip the stems just above a pair of leaves. This tells the plant to branch out, to grow fuller, a quiet promise that you're helping her thrive, even as you take what you need. And never take more than a third of the plant. Once you've gathered your small bounty, bring it inside. Gather the stems into small, loose bundles and tie them gently with a piece of simple cotton twine. Hang these little bouquets upside down in a place that is warm, dry, and away from direct sunlight. A quiet corner of your kitchen or a breezy, shadowed pantry is perfect. Then you can simply wait. Over the next week or two, the water will slowly leave the plant, but the spirit of sage will remain. You'll know it's ready when the leaves are crisp, when they crumble with a satisfying dry rustle between your fingertips. Gently strip these dried leaves from the stems. Let them fall into a clear glass jar, sealing it tight to protect the earthy, peppery scent. Whenever you open the jar, even in the cold depths of winter, you will smell the summer sun. When you make a sage tea, treat it like a lullaby, a slow, rhythmic ritual to signal to your body that it's time to rest. Boil your water and then let it sit for a moment to calm. You want the water hot, but not boiling, just gentle enough to coax the medicine out without shocking or burning the tender leaves. Place a spoonful of dried sage into your favorite ceramic mug. Pour the water over the leaves and immediately cover the mug with a small saucer. This is the secret, the covering of the cup. Sage is rich in volatile oils, those beautiful aromatic compounds that give her that piney, camphor-like scent. If you leave the cup uncovered, the healing oils will float away on the steam. So by covering the mug, you invite the medicine to gather, condense, and rain back down into your tea. Let it steep for 10 to 15 minutes. When you finally lift the saucer, close your eyes and breathe in the rising steam. Sip slowly. Let the warmth travel down your throat, grounding you, clearing the fog from your mind, and wrapping you in comfort. For medicine that lasts through the turning of the seasons, you might choose to make a simple folk tincture. Fill a small glass jar halfway with freshly dried, gently crushed sage leaves. Pour an 80 proof vodka over the leaves, filling the jar to the very top. Cap it tightly, give it a good shake, and place it in a cool, dark cupboard. For 6 weeks, visit your jar every day or two to give it a gentle shake, watching the liquid turn a deep golden green as the sage offers up her medicine. If you prefer something without alcohol, or something gentle for the little ones in your life, a glycerite is a beautiful alternative. By using food-grade vegetable glycerin instead of spirits, you create a sweet, soothing extract that children often love, capturing the herb's healing properties in a syrupy, alcohol-free form. My first moments of sage are not particularly mystical. Like many people, I knew sage first as a culinary herb. It lived quietly in the kitchen cabinet alongside the other seasonings and spices. While some herbs arrive pre-ground and anonymous, sage often appeared in full leaf form, 5 or 6 silvery green leaves tucked into a jar, waiting patiently for their moment. I didn't think much about it as a child. It was simply one of the ingredients my parents reached for while preparing dinner. Sage seemed to make its annual appearance around Thanksgiving. It found its way into stuffing, casseroles, and holiday meals. Its aroma became woven into memories of family gatherings, crowded kitchens, and the anticipation that accompanies a meal shared with people you love. For most of my childhood, that was the entirety of my relationship with sage. It was a kitchen herb, a seasoning, a flavor, nothing more. That changed in my late 20s when I began studying herbs more seriously. Like many people interested in herbal traditions, I eventually encountered sage in an entirely different context. Not in the kitchen, but as a plant associated with cleansing, protection, and ritual. I became curious about the stories people told about sage and the role it had played in various traditions throughout history. I started experimenting with it myself, occasionally burning sage as a way to mark transitions, clear stagnant energy, or simply create a sense of intention within my home. Whether one interprets that practice spiritually, psychologically, or somewhere in between matters less to me than the feeling it creates. There's something powerful about pausing long enough to acknowledge a space, to appreciate it, to care for it, to intentionally shape the atmosphere you want to live within. When I moved into my current home, I planted sage around the perimeter of the property, at least a dozen plants, and this was not an accident. I wanted this space to feel like a sanctuary, a place for creativity, for harmony, connection, and friendship, and for the kinds of conversations that stretch long into the evening and leave everyone feeling a little more understood than before. If lavender has become part of the story inside my home, sage has become part of the story outside it. Over the years, I've watched those plants thrive. They've endured blazing desert summers and winter cold snaps. They remain standing through changing seasons, their silvery green leaves catching morning light and evening shadows alike. There's something steadfast about sage. It asks for very little and gives so much in return. In spring and early summer, the plants transform. The soft, gray-green foliage erupts with towers of purple flowers, and suddenly the garden begins to hum. Bees arrive first, then more bees, and then butterflies and other pollinators. Entire afternoons can disappear while sitting outside watching the activity unfold. The sage becomes less a plant and more a gathering place, hosting countless small visitors drawn to its abundance. Watching this cycle year after year has deepened my appreciation for the plant. Protection, I've learned, is not always about keeping things out. Sometimes protection looks like creating conditions where life can flourish, where beauty can flourish, where community can flourish. Recently, I've started making my own sage bundles from the plants growing in the yard. There's something really satisfying about harvesting a few branches, carefully bundling them together, and allowing them to dry. Some stay in my own home. Others are gifted to friends and loved ones. I like the idea that a plant grown in one garden can continue its journey elsewhere. A small offering, a blessing, a reminder. Throughout the year, particularly around seasonal celebrations like Litha or Imbolc, I often save pruned branches and dried stems for the fire. As evening settles in and friends gather around a bonfire, I'll occasionally toss a handful into the flames, and the fragrance rises almost immediately, earthy, resinous, and ancient. The smoke drifts upward into the night sky while conversations continue around it, laughter and stories, and the familiar comfort of being surrounded by people you care about. And every time, I am reminded that sage has accompanied me through so many different chapters of life, from the kitchen cabinet of my childhood, to the garden beds of my first home, to the sanctuary I've built today. A seasoning, a medicine, a protector, a companion. Not bad for a handful of leaves quietly waiting in the back of a cupboard. Let's open up the apothecary cabinet and look a little closer at the steady, quiet gift this beautiful plant has to offer. Sage is so much more than a culinary staple. It's a deeply restorative medicine, steeped in both ancient folklore and modern science. Sage is the memory keeper. For centuries, herbalists have called sage the herb of wisdom, and our modern science agrees. Compounds in sage help protect our cognitive function, gently awakening the mind without the harsh jolt of caffeine, preserving our memories like pressed flowers resting in a heavy book. Sage is the throat soother. When cold winds chop our skin and tickle our throats, sage stands as a loyal protector. Its fuzzy leaves are rich in antimicrobial properties, wrapping a raw, scratchy throat in a soothing botanical embrace. Sage is the gentle digestive. After a heavy, comforting meal, a warm cup of sage tea tells the body it's safe to relax. It eases the tension in the stomach, untangling the complicated knots of the day so that you can digest your food and your thoughts in total peace. I'd like to invite you to welcome sage into your own life this week. The next time you're at the market, or maybe walking past a neighbor's overgrown garden, see if you can find a fresh sprig. Gently brush the leaf with your thumb and bring it to your nose, and just breathe. If you'd like to try brewing a quiet cup of your own, you can find a couple of links in the description. I've also included the sources in tonight's bibliography, where you can explore the scientific studies and the folklore we touched on today. Take a moment for yourself tonight. Let the warmth soothe you, and let the aroma ground you. Until next time, keep your roots deep and your leaves reaching for the sun. Stay wild and stay well.